listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast, a Texas Tech athletics podcast where food and sports clash at the goal line. Here are your hosts, Spencer and Michael.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to an episode of the 23 Personnel Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, joined by Michael. Michael, what's up, man?
I've got some perspective for everybody. So think of Back to the Future. When was the last time you watched Back to the Future? Has it been a while?
Several years.
Do you remember? Okay, so what year did they go back to in Back to the Future, the first one? Do you remember?
No idea.
1955. So watch that movie again, see all the cars, like there's some Studebakers in there, there's some old Fords, I think there's a Bel Air floating around somewhere, but and think back to that time and then realize what Texas Tech just did. 1955 was the last time Texas Tech won an outright conference championship. 70 years ago, they annihilated their closest competition that they already had to annihilate once previous this past Saturday to win their first conference championship in 70 years. Since that time, the interstate system was invented. Sputnik was launched. We landed on the moon. UCF was founded. It's been longer. Our championship drought has been around longer than the Golden Knights, period. But no more. It is over. It is done. Spencer, you were there. I can't wait to hear all about it. I know we'll probably run through what all we're going to talk about, but that's just kind of where my head's at. I'm still reeling from the historical aspect of what we were able to witness on Saturday. How are you?
I am still recovering. I lost my voice. Michael points out, this is the first game that I attended in person this season. I was worried about it being the jinx or being,
it would have been you of all the other 85,000 people there. You were the only one that would have jinxed it. Yeah.
But it's been many years since I've lost my voice at a football game. I'll put it that way. And I think I would not be the only person that could tell you about the environment of that game, and which I'll happily detail everything about this. I will just say it was incredible. It will be something I will never forget. I have a weird enough memory where I remember where I was for a lot of things, like randomly. I could tell you what section I was in 2007 when Texas Tech beat Oklahoma and we rushed the field. I was a student. I was a freshman that year. I could tell you, even though I watched the game on the couch by myself for 2008, like I could tell you everything I did that day. And honestly, it wasn't much. I sat there and I watched Game Day, I watched all 3 hours of Game Day. And I think I watched every second of football leading up to it, but just like couldn't get enough, couldn't turn away from it. And then whatever. I remember a handful of other games, like what we were doing. This is one of those games, though. My point being is this is one of those games I will always remember not being able to sleep the night before. I didn't get to bed till after 2:30 Friday night. And I woke up at my normal time at 6. I could not go back to sleep. I did not get out and go for my daily walk and exercise. I couldn't do it. I didn't have breakfast. I was too anxious. My stomach was too weird, and not like I was sick or anything, but I was like I was nervous enough I couldn't eat. I couldn't eat. I wanted to grab breakfast on the way into the game with my brother. And it just like we left my mom's house there in Mesquite at 8:30, 30 minutes before I planned on leaving, because I was like, let's just go. There's no point sitting around the
What are we
house. Let's
doing?
just go.
Yeah, we're ready.
I know that it was like I had heard the game was a sellout, and I was expecting a big crowd. And I know being in the Metroplex, there was going to be a lot of Red Raiders there. It was almost surreal driving 30 west into Arlington and seeing that car's full of Red Raiders. That car's full of Red Raiders. That car has a Texas Tech sticker. That one's got a bumper emblem on it. Texas Tech flags. People like hanging out their window and flashing guns up. I was like, we're on the highway. In like a convoy almost of like just tens of thousands of people descending on the stadium, and we were part of it. And you know, like because we were cheap, I didn't want to pay for super close parking, and it was still stupid expensive. It took us 40 minutes from the time we closed the door on the truck to the time we sat down in our seats in the stadium. It was that long of a walk. And then it took us that long to get up to our seats. We were in section 410. And the entrance we came in on the stadium was not the side that had the escalators. It was like we had to go up the ramp, the switchback ramp. So it took us forever to get up there, it felt like. We got in our seats. It was a little after 10 a.m. And then we were just sat there. Almost in silence, but like not that it was quiet, but like we were just kind of taking it all in. And I will confess, I'll share. There were 2 moments that I had some liquid awesome leaking, some West Texas. And it was just so surreal. Like watching the stadium fill up was one thing, but like when the bands were playing, like, so pregame, both bands played like almost like a abbreviated halftime show. Like they got on the field, did a march formation. They played a song that wasn't their school song or the fight song, and then played their fight song on the way off. And then they didn't play the national anthem because it was performed by somebody else. When Texas Tech was playing, the Texas Tech band, the going band was playing the fight song when they were done marching, coming off. Like I was just sitting there just like I just couldn't believe it, man. Like where we were, what we were about to witness, the energy, just the environment, the vibes. I was just like, it's indescribable almost. Like I'm sitting there taking it all in. Like we've talked about a Texas Tech team competing for a Big 12 title, and this is not the end of the season. It's not the end goal, but it was a stated goal. And it was something that almost felt unattainable for so long. And like, we're here, we're doing it. And not only are we doing it, like I was talking to my brother on the way in, it's like, in my wildest dreams, I always thought like for Texas Tech to be in this position, you had to have some kind of crazy upset. Like it was going to take some kind of a miracle to pull it off. And we were driving in as a 2 touchdown favorite. Like all we had to do was get there and play our game. And not that like I was all that supremely confident, because I was like, I was nervous as heck. I could tell you just about the vibes in the stadium, and like also on my row, that opening drive was hell. I was like, holy crap. Like, okay, we're in for a fight. It did not feel good. BYU fans there were a handful around us. I think they could sense the magnitude of what that opening drive was like, and then Texas Tech was like, "Oh no," almost like it's not going well.
Yeah, and right after
Um,
a 10-play drive that resulted in a punt.
yeah,
Just yeah, it felt 7-0 felt really tough to overcome at that point after seeing what they done. Oh my gosh, they figured it out. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no. So I was just like, so that was the first time. Like I said, I was taking it in. I was just like, it was. I couldn't explain it. I still really can't explain it, but like, it wasn't like crying or sobbing, but there were tears. I can't explain it otherwise. It's just like I just could not. I can't place it, but I was just like, I don't even know what to believe or what to feel. And the game started, and all that went away, and it was tense for a long time. We'll go through the game recap, and we can relive how it actually wasn't that tense of a game, and how you can talk about, how BYU fans will point to like, oh, it was a one score game with 3.5 minutes left in the third quarter. That's a fraudulent stat to keep yourself feeling better about it. But and then afterwards, I wish I had a video of it from my perspective. I had a hard time singing the school song, man. um I've watched probably a dozen videos from other people around the stadium. Um and it like uh, obviously when you're there, you remember like singing the song, like more people know the words towards the end of the song, right? Starting with like Stand on the Heights of Victory. I think from there to the end, most people know the words, and not so many of the words, but before that. Um, but then to not only be the ones like screaming it, but also hearing like the rest of the crowd, that was an amazing, very, very heavy Texas Tech crowd. Um, Screaming "Long live the Matadors." I, I won't forget that feeling, what it felt like being in that environment, to be a part of that, my voice be a part of that. BYU had a very, I don't want to sound disrespectful when I say they had a respectable crowd. Like it was a good number of BYU fans. But there have been multiple videos that were, granted, they were probably from the BYU side, that kind of panned over the stadium. It's like they've got like four sections, and everything else was Texas Tech. When you see that Texas Tech, well, when this game not only eclipsed the Big 12 title game attendance record, you reset that with 85.5, whatever it was, 519, but you set the Power 4 conference championship record. It wasn't Texas, it wasn't Oklahoma, it wasn't Alabama or Georgia or Auburn, it was Texas Tech, BYU. 85,000 people, vast majority of those being Red Raiders. And then we got to watch one hell of a game. Yes, it was back and forth, and that probably added to it I say back and forth. It was hard fought. It was tense. There were moments where you thought that Texas Tech should be doing better, should be pulling away. There were moments when BYU was showing that they had prepared for this game. And you were like, man, I don't know how we're going to deal with this for 60 minutes, or like, we're going to have to, it's going to be difficult. And then like, it kind of like reality starts to set in, like they had to do so much. BYU had to do so much to put together that first drive. And you're like, man, that's a lot of trick plays. on drive number 1. And then there were also so many plays, even on the first drive, where from my perspective in 4-10, I could see it. Texas Tech was this close to breaking a big play. Like very last possible BYU player, full extension, just clips a shoe top for a tackle. And like maybe that wasn't caught on the broadcast, but like there was nobody left to make that play. And which in the moment I said, give BYU credit. They are doing everything they can. They're tackling. If it's a last possible guy, they're making that tackle. And you didn't end up having one of those big breakaway plays like I was seeing that could happen from my perspective. Like I said, big holes would open. You had a guy going there, or with the way their defense was aligned, one guy left to beat, and he made the play. So I think that's a big credit to BYU and their team. But it really wasn't a close game. I will start with the defense, Michael, and I assume by this point you've watched the game. Yeah.
I did get to watch the entire first quarter, and I'm embarrassed to say I've not gone back to watch the rest of it, but I did get to listen to the entirety of the game. So I've at least had that going for me. For those of you who didn't know or just picking up, I was at a soccer tournament in Frisco. So close, but not quite there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got to listen.
Well, okay. So opening drive for BYU, they go 10 plays, 90 yards, and score. And it was a 10 or 12-yard rush there at the end for LJ Martin to punch in, and they take a 7-0 lead. And we're like, all right, all right.
And Burns 7 minutes off the clock too. You just think, oh my gosh, if this is what we're in for, this could get rough.
Yeah, and I was when they were flashing the stats up, I was tracking it, and I was like, well, after Texas Tech's second drive, granted that was when Texas Tech kicked their first field goal, scored their first points, 7-3. Despite you giving up a 10-play, 90-yard drive, you had an advantage. I was like, oh, but it's because Texas Tech has had 2 drives to BYU's 1, and then you forced a 3-and-out on BYU's second drive. Like, all right, well, it's 2 possessions each. 2 possessions each, and there's a gap there. You just continued to not let BYU breathe following the first drive. Again, I said that like it took a lot of trick plays, misdirection, and it took some settling in from your defense before you got to this point. But BYU second drive, 3 plays, -2 yards, they punted. Their third drive, they went 6 plays, turnover on downs. That was their that was the fake punt. You had forced them into a fake punt on 4th down at halfway through the second quarter. At that point, they were digging deeper into their bag of tricks to keep the game close, to try to keep the game close. Now, those that were watching the broadcast saw the shot on the sideline where the camera caught Joey McGuire. He was pointing up the sideline. He was pointing at Kenny Perry. And Kenny Perry came down the sideline, and they had the most aggressive high five I've ever seen. And it was pointed out like they were ready for that. They were prepared for it. The execution on the field would demonstrate that they were ready for it. Only my brother can attest that I said, watch for the fake here. Nobody else would believe me. The defense, the special teams coverage unit was absolutely ready for it. John Curry dropped into coverage, followed his man, broke up the pass. Had that ball gotten past John Curry, one, it was, I think, behind the line of scrimmage, so he still had many yards to go to pick up the first down. But there was another defender behind him that could have made the tackle. Fourth play, 6 plays, 0 yards, punt. BYU had one more drive in the first half, and it was a 1-play run out the clock, 4 yards, end of half. Second half, Michael, is where it snowballed on BYU. Your defense. Well, I mean, it really snowballed after the first drive. But opening up the second half, 12 plays, 47 yards. So first drives, both halves, were long, sustained drives, but this one only went half as far. It only went 47 yards, and they attempted a field goal and missed. Took off 5.5 minutes. Their first drive took off almost 7 minutes. And then, Michael, it was pain. 3 plays, interception. 3 plays, punt. 2 plays, fumble. 1 play, interception. 4 plays, turnover on downs. 1 play, fumble. And then the white flag punt to end the game, their last possession. That second half defensive drive chart, whatever you want to call it, I heard somebody relate the Texas Tech defense to a boa constrictor. They squeezed the life out of it. And yeah, they forced 5 turnovers in 6 drives, 6 turnovers in 7 drives if you want to count the field goal attempt. But the interception, fumble, interception, turnover on downs, and fumble with a 3 and out there, absolutely squeeze the life out of BYU there. Some BYU fans would point to Texas Tech went up 21-7, or I guess 19-7 with 3.5 minutes left to go in the third quarter. BYU, their last time to cross the 50-yard line was with 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. So we talked about in the first game, they ran like 6, 9, 10, whatever it was. You did almost the exact same thing. Game 1, game 2 for these two teams, almost identical. BYU this time had 11 plays in Texas Tech territory. 6 of them came in the first drive. The rest of the 5 came on that other drive. And even then there were a bunch of short plays that had just crossed over the 50. And that's including the field goal attempt play. You gave up 137 yards on 2 drives. Like, well, that's not very good. You gave up 200 total yards on the day.
Yeah, so those 2 drives were it. That was all they had.
63 yards on 11 drives. Not 11 plays, drives. 11 possessions. 63 yards. That's like 5 yards per drive. Gave up 63 rush yards on 30 carries. It's 2.1 yards per carry. If you take out the sacks, it was 88 yards. 3.1 yards per carry. 137 pass yards. Bear Bachmeier ended the game 17 of 29. That was 4.7 yards per attempt. BYU offense averaged 3.4 yards per play.
Crushed.
Yeah. I don't want to spend a lot of time here because I want to point this out and just in the context of saying, like, in the moment, I will tell you, I felt like Texas Tech could have put up more points, should have put up more points. It was when you had that string of turnovers in the second half, and you, I think, scored 13 points off of it. So what had happened in that string of drives, so BYU misses a field goal, Texas Tech would respond, turn the ball over on downs. You had the first Ben Roberts interception that led to then Texas Tech would score a touchdown to go 21-7. Then you get the 3 and out. Texas Tech would punt. You force the fumble, the 2-play drive, the fumble. Texas Tech would respond with a field goal. The next drive was the interception on first down from Ben Roberts. This was the second missed field goal for Stone Harrington, a field goal attempt. I'm about to lose my mind. Then you had the 4-play turnover on downs where Ben Roberts could have had his third interception. It was a pass breakup. So essentially he forced another turnover. Texas Tech then would score a touchdown, but it was on the 4th down conversion on the Aiken pass to the sideline. That score puts you up 31-7. The next drive, first play, you force a fumble. Texas Tech scores a field goal, 34-7. And then BYU, in their final drive, 4-play punt. I told my brother that punt was Sataki saying, don't score on us again. We're done. Game's over. Don't do it. And you know what you did? You gave Baron Morton a curtain call. Got out there, handed the ball off for 1 play, and then you put Mitch Griffiths in to kneel out more than 2 minutes of game clock. Like, I don't know if you could have kneeled out more time off the clock.
Yeah, it was 2:54.
Yeah, so I think you ran 1 play and then you kneeled the rest of it out.
And that includes the 2-minute timeout
Mm-hmm.
or whatever in there. I just feel like I keep saying this. I know this is a small thing, but it's not. This is one of those things that I think previous coaching staffs would have somehow found themselves punting with 12 seconds left or something like that. They wouldn't have been able to just hang on to the ball for the final 3 minutes. Something would have messed up. They would have called a timeout for some reason. I don't know. But the staff gets it.
Yeah. Realizing I'm like 30 minutes in here, I'm neglecting the comments. I want to go back through and go through some of the comments because they do follow a lot of what we talked about. Old Texas Tech man says, "Come on, guys." A Steve says, "Great day to be a Red Raider. Wreck 'em." Man, it's a glorious day. It's been a wonderful 4 days. Red Raider Roy, what effing time to be alive. Who has it better than us, boys? Nobody. Nobody has it better than us. Old Texas Tech man says, any news on Skylar Gill Howard? Do you think he will play in the Orange Bowl? I think the last I heard was he needed to have a few good weeks of recovery to potentially be in the realm of coming back. And I don't know if that's still the case as of recording. I don't know. He also says, plus should go hard on Sorsby. I'm interested to see how the transfer quarterback thing works out.
Did you see that Leave It is in the portal? That went official right before we recorded, I think.
Yeah, and
there was a lot. I don't think that surprises a lot of people, but he's in there too.
One, he's got a couple years of eligibility left, so I don't know if like that factors or if that plays a role. He may only be looking at one year anyways. But also, there's probably a lot to be said about how he's leaving the program, and not attending his captain's banquet and all the weird things that were put out from over the weekend. I wouldn't hate it. I also don't know if I love it or Sorsby. I haven't really dove into all that. I know there's a Florida quarterback that potentially could be wanting to come back to the great state. Would need some coaching up, but I've loved that potential fit for a few months. But we'll see. I'm no longer a subscriber to any kind of premium board recruiting service, so I have to rely on you guys to keep me updated on that. Maddie Reckham says it was an out of body experience. Yeah, there were definitely times when it just felt like this is otherworldly, or we're watching a movie or something. Steve says it's a collective trauma of being Tech fans. We've been waiting for the other shoe to drop all season. Yeah. Old Tech man. I'm in Sepulpa, Oklahoma. Went out in the front yard, yelled Raider Power out loud after the game. Yeah, I was there in the stadium when we did the Raider Power, and unfortunately, we didn't have like a great Raider Power during the game. Just with the way that the Tech fans were set up, like you couldn't get it coordinated, and you weren't going across the stadium. It was like up the sideline. So that one after the game was unbelievable.
Yeah, we were driving back from the soccer game, and thankfully my wife had resubscribed to XM radio not too long ago. So anytime we were in the car, I had the Double T 97.3 guys talking to me, which was great. But we happened to be in the car coming back from our second of 3 soccer games of the day, and I caught the trophy ceremony and all that. And, I'd held it together fine until Joey did the Raider Power. And then I was like, okay, I'm having trouble driving now. It's real. It's happened. This is history that we're witnessing right here. And, then of course he killed it on the interview after that. So that was my moment for me, was him. Of course, naturally, there's no way he wasn't going to do it, and do it 3 times.
Yeah.
In front of, the remaining 75,000 Tech fans.
I remember I kind of grouped the second leakage of West Texas in my eye, or Liquid Awesome. The last one, I have a video of it. I recorded the last snap, the last kneel down. That was one that got me. Because it, like, not that there was really a chance. I don't know when you can calculate garbage time, like when the game was technically out of reach. Looking back, you can say, oh, well, like BYU really never had a shot in the second half because they crossed the 50 once. But you could definitely feel it building. I was like shoving my brother for a while, like just like it's just really happening. And then that last kneel down. All right. I don't know if I can read some of his comments, man. This next one's hard. Old Tech Stack Man says, I know my dad is grinning ear to ear in heaven. He graduated in 62. Yeah, man. Farmer Dave, man, I was jacked up when I woke up at 5:30 on Saturday. I didn't need coffee, Advil, breakfast, nothing. I was vibrating. I understand that. I experienced something similar to that. Steve says, same. I also slept like maybe 3 hours the night before. Maddie says, I woke up every hour the night before. Farmer Dave, my Liquid Awesome came out before the game when I was by myself driving to get my wife coffee an hour before we left for the game. He said the opening drive also freaked him out. Nathan Collins, this is going back to the SGH, says SGH won't be ready. Earliest would be semifinals. Nathan Collins, I don't want to have to listen to Sam Levitt talk, such a douche. Nathan Collins says, please not DJ wrong way. He's always hurt too. So, yeah, well, again, I don't have premium subscriptions anywhere on 3 or Rivals or whatever they call themselves. I don't know who's on the board, who's a target, who's being brought in. I may see if there's a 1-month trial or something for the next, month or so. But I also have I was talking about the videos. I have a video of that last kneel down. I have a video of most of Ben Roberts' MVP presentation and then all of the Texas Tech trophy presentation, including the Raider Power. But I don't have the school song. I wish I had that. I don't. I've seen so many fantastic edits on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and TikTok of not only like highlights, but of just like the atmosphere of fans of the team before, during, and after the game. I will continue to take it in. I have not watched the broadcast of the game. I've watched the highlight videos. But I could sit down probably after we finish recording and watch the entire game.
I know. I think I'm going to do that. We've got some time. We've got a little bit of time off. We can do that in our bye week or during Christmas. Gather the family around. I may just have that playing in the background anytime anyone is at my house for the next, I don't know, year until Hulu deletes it. But I did. I just couldn't. I couldn't. I can't. I don't have words. I don't have words for it.
I have not seen the latest episode of The Ride. It came out tonight. Steve says the latest episode is stellar. Had my wife and I tearing up. So
Oh, boy.
good. I'll watch that after we wrap up here tonight.
Okay, that sounds good.
So yeah, it was just a fantastic game. You were a healthy 2-touchdown favorite. You ended up winning by 27. This now brings Texas Tech's win totals by 20 plus points up to 12. All 12 victories this year are by 20 plus points. You're the only team in college football to do that. Offensively, you put up 374 yards, 215 through the air, 159 on the ground. You averaged more than 5 yards per play, 11 yards per completion. You were 8 of 19 on third down, so weren't great, but it felt like, especially early on, you had a lot of third and longs. You're 4 of 5 in the red zone. That one failure there, not failure, but non-conversion was on the 4th down. Hindsight, I didn't love the play. I loved the execution less. I thought Baron Morton held on to it too long. It did feel like he was hunting for a penalty. In the stadium, like watching it live, I thought he should have thrown it earlier. When I saw the replay, I was like, why was there not a flag? This officiating crew, you can't tell me that there aren't like storylines built into the officiating, because this very much felt like they had to call the procedural stuff, like, okay, false starts, like you can't, like there's no judgment in that. But when that was essentially the only penalties they called all game, you could have called holding on both teams. Each team got one pass interference called against them, but everything else, there were 6 combined false starts. There's 1 offsides on BYU. It's like, again, like things you can't really deny. There's no judgment involved in those calls. It was black or white. Yes, there was an infraction. And then 1 judgment call each way. It didn't feel egregious. Like one team got like the significant benefit there with this way of officiating. So like I didn't have a problem with it. Like it felt like both teams kind of adjusted, and it wasn't like it was a dirty, like a lot of pushing and shoving and like an ugly game. But given the choice of the flip side, like, and having a game that would have been over officiated and had 15 flags, yeah, I'd rather have what we saw on Saturday than the other side.
Yeah, I feel like that crew, it seems like they always, any game I watch with that crew, there's always weird stuff going on. Or they're announcing something amid a bunch of boos, or they're reviewing something that you're wondering why they're reviewing it. just I kind of expect weirdness with them, and it
Like the
seems
Coy
like that's
Aiken
what.
touchdown. It was like
Yeah,
it was
he was clearly stretched across the pylon. If that's a catch, that's a touchdown, and it was a catch because he ruled him down at the 1. What are we doing now? And so anyway, just yeah, with that crew, I expect weird things, and usually they happen.
yeah. All right. I will not be negative any more than what you've already heard me say on this game, on at least on tonight's episode. Because here's the thing. You went and won a Big 12 freaking championship. And you did it dominating fashion. You know, it's been like both a flex and like really irritating to me is I've been trying to take in all the college football content, the solid verbal, the Josh Pate stuff, all that kind of stuff. And this Big 12 title game gets like 27 seconds of a mention because it was boring. Because it
Yeah,
wasn't ever
and
close.
no, and because whether they want to admit it or not, all of the people just expected Texas Tech to win, which is such a weird position to be in. And of course, Texas Tech took care of BYU in the Big 12 championship game. Yawn. How about let's talk about how that's new? That's a new thing. We're not used to it yet. How are y'all? How are y'all so used to this?
Yeah. So, all right. Coming into the game, Michael, I predicted 34-13.
Pretty darn close.
It's pretty close. I gave them a little bit more credit on what they were able to do. To my credit, to BYU's credit, like they had opportunities to at least get to 10, potentially 14 if that drive they ended up kicking a field goal on. I'm not going to count up the number of points that you could have scored if you made your field goals or if you converted on that 4th and goal, or you scored touchdowns instead of kicked field goals there at the end, because 34-7 was just yes, it was a 1 possession game with 3.5 minutes left in the third quarter, but the second half was never in question. Since then, Michael, things have transpired. Postseason awards have started to come out. Jacob Rodriguez won the Bronco Nagurski Trophy. You know what that means? What that was? The most out. Hold on, I'm going to get that mixed up. The Bronco Nagurski is the hold on. Let me make sure I say this right. Awarded annually since 1993 to the Collegiate American Football Defensive Player, adjudged by the membership to be the best in the NCAA. So the best defensive player wins the Bronco Nagurski. Our very own Jacob Rodriguez won best defensive player in the country. He was also named a finalist for the Lott Trophy. The Lott Trophy is given to is it the best linebacker? No, it's an impact player. Ohio State safety Caleb Downs won that one, but Jacob Rodriguez was named a finalist. And then finally, Michael, Monday night, it was released, the Heisman finalist lists. And if we're being honest with ourselves, I think we can say that a defensive player winning the Heisman was always going to be a long shot. But that maybe potentially being that we watched him put together a generational season, a one-of-one season, that he would be honored and he would be recognized as one of the best players in college football to be named a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. And he wasn't. We're being force-fed a mediocre quarterback class on good teams. Julian Sayin, Fernando Mendoza, Diego Pavia are your quarterback finalists. And then Jeremiah Love is your running back finalist. By the way, Taj Brooks last year had better numbers than Jeremiah Love. Was he a Heisman finalist? No. Also has to do with the logo on your uniform, I would say. And also that Jacob Rodriguez was not a quarterback. We're an offensive skill player, but not a quarterback.
He was at one time.
Yeah,
but yeah, not this year. Not at Texas Tech, generally speaking.
Yeah. And then I can't think of the word. Yeah, you try to get him some offensive snaps this year too to help with that. But you're also in the running for a Broyles Award. Sheil Wood has been named a finalist for the Broyles Award, which goes to the best coordinator in the land. Others on that list, I believe, are at least the Indiana and Ohio State defensive coordinators.
Makes sense. It's good company.
Excuse me. Let's do the job openings tracker. Give an update on all the college football jobs. Unless you have something else for BYU Big 12 title game or Big 12 championship, because that's I'll never get tired of talking about this.
Nope. I wish I did. I'm really glad that we got to experience that. And I honestly just didn't know, especially coming into this season, but just over the last decade, you think about where Texas Tech was 10 years ago, one of the best players on the planet, and you still can't win any games. But look at us now.
Look at us now.
Yep. Getting a bye in the CFP. And that's just, we'll talk about the CFP a little bit more, I'm sure, but that's its own unique thing being ranked in it. You know, this is the first time Tech's ever been ranked in the CFP this season, and they have a bye. It's just so many firsts, so many incredible things to try to wrap your head around. And like I've said a couple of weeks ago, this is going to be one of those times of our life where we look back 5 or 10 years from now and probably remember it better. But right now it just feels like a blur.
Yeah. I was thinking about the trade-off on recording tonight, our first recording tonight instead of being Saturday night. One, like I said, you wouldn't have been able to hear me with my voice. Two, I would have been scattered. Yeah, I would have been more animated and yelling and screaming, but I would not have been able to keep two thoughts in a row. But I also, I told Michael this. I wanted to sit with it for a while, and I wanted to internalize it, to go through it. And it's been 72 hours. It's been 3+ days since that game went final. And I still have a hard time believing this is something that happened. It's real life. So like you may like, guys, why are you so down? I'm not down. I really am. No. But it's like, I don't know how to put it into words. And it's strange for somebody like you talk. This is a podcast. What do you mean you don't like? I've been a fan of Texas Tech for 18 seasons, and that's not very many. There were so many. I mean, we've had 3-4 good years in that 18 span. It was like the first two and these last two. Like I had 12-ish years of like really bad football, and really like seeing the state of the state of college football, thinking like Texas Tech will always be on the outside. And what we say about the group of five or other teams, like that will never be you. Like I felt that. And I had thoughts like, why can't it be us? But not like now it's like, why not us? That kind of believer mentality, but like, why not us? Like, why would we never be able to do that? Well, you are, and you're doing it now. Again, these are the good old days. You're in it now. Whether this is the start of a run, or this is a not a peak, but like a high point, like we saw in the basketball trajectory that you had a few years ago. That it elevates your program, and that your eyes are always set on getting back to what you're doing now. Obviously, that's to be seen, but in the moment, it's hard to believe this is happening, and we still have 3 games ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about the job openings carousel update from last time. Briefly, quickly, we talked about is it Jim Mora? What's his name? Yeah, Jim Mora from UConn going to Colorado State. UConn is now backfilling with Jason Candle from Toledo. We mentioned Tosh Lapui, the Oregon defensive coordinator, being connected to the Cal opening, and that has now been confirmed. So Oregon is losing both coordinators. Offensive coordinator Will Stein going to be the head coach at Kentucky. Defensive coordinator Tosh Lapui going to be the head coach at Cal. Both of them will be staying on through the end of the season, end of the playoff run with the Ducks. So don't get your hopes up there. Although it does sound like the new co-offensive coordinator or the new offensive coordinator for Oregon may be getting his feet wet in play calling duties under guidance from Will Stein, if you will. Kind of like a transitional, like, hey, we're going to let you learn under Will Stein and start calling plays with the playoff run before you take over full time. Penn State finally hires a coach, and they trip backwards up the stairs into the hire that they probably should have made 2 months ago. They hired Matt Campbell from Iowa State. And could have saved themselves, their fan base, their AD, a lot of heartache, headache, and embarrassment if they had just gone with the guy that a lot of people were saying, like, you should probably look at Matt Campbell instead of Matt Rule and Kalani Sitake. Although I thought Sitake would have been a great coach for them.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Much better fit, I think, for BYU, but they, like I said, tripped backwards up the stairs into the hire they should have made 60 days ago and got Matt Campbell. Meaning, obviously, Iowa State had an opening for about 3 hours. They hired Jimmy Rogers, the head coach from Washington State. He was only there for a year, but before that, he was at one of the North Dakota, South Dakota State schools, whichever one. I can't remember which. So very much a cultural fit for the Iowa State culture. James Madison lost their head coach, who was going to go take over UCLA. They're hiring Billy Napier from the former Florida head coach. Kansas State, we saw Chris Kleiman retire at the age of 58. And they named Texas A&M offensive coordinator Colin Klein. Saw that coming from a mile away. The Memphis head coach moved on to Arkansas. It was Ryan Silverfield. So they had an opening. They hired Charles Huff from Southern Miss. North Texas, we mentioned that they were targeting Neil Brown, who was an assistant at Texas. He's now been officially hired as their new head coach. Tulane has tabbed Will Hall to be promoted. He was the offensive coordinator at Tulane. He will take over for John Summerall, who's going to Florida. And I didn't remember if this was a head coach or just a defensive coordinator hire, but Vince Karras will be taking over either head coach or defensive coordinator from Toledo, who was the defensive coordinator at Toledo. So I think that brings the job openings down to 1. I think it's just Washington State, unless that's been filled. I've not checked on that, but I expected more of a head coaching carousel with this one. Obviously you got that with like Eric Morris and Alex Golish, and like you got some like group of 5 to power 5 movement. I expected some more, power 4 to power 4 movement. And like I said, you got some with Matt Campbell. You got some with Lane Kiffin. You also got some cross-pollination or crossover from group of 6 to power 4. John Summerall going to Florida. Jimmy Rogers, which I guess is technically power 4, but anyways, it wasn't as crazy as I probably expected it to be. All right, so conference championship games were Friday and Saturday. You got the latest round, the final round of college playoff rankings Sunday afternoon. Okay, one, for Texas Tech's sake, I think you're in a great spot. You stayed firm at 4. You won the game. The only movement ahead of you was Indiana and Ohio State flipped because Indiana won. So Indiana's 1, Ohio State is 2. Georgia won their game. They stayed at 3, Texas Tech 4, Oregon 5, Ole Miss 6, Texas A&M 7, Oklahoma 8, Alabama 9, Notre Dame 10. Sorry, nope.
Wait.
I'm sure they wanted that to be.
Was that a Freudian slip?
Yeah. Oklahoma 8, Alabama 9, Miami 10, Notre Dame 11, BYU 12, Texas 13, Vanderbilt 14, Utah, Southern Cal, Arizona, Michigan, Virginia at 19, Tulane at 20, Houston, Georgia Tech, Iowa, James Madison at 24, North Texas at 25. If you watched or listened to the playoff ranking selection show, whatever you want to call it, on Sunday, you would have been scratching your head just like I was as I was listening to that on my drive back to the Coastal Bend. The playoff committee simultaneously said, you will not be punished for playing in a conference title game. We couldn't punish Alabama for losing their conference title game while then dropping BYU for losing. So that narrative only applies to SEC apparently, because
I agree.
Yes, Indiana and Ohio State, like, they flipped, and you can understand that. You can justify that. They played head to head in the conference title game. Ohio State didn't drop past 2. They just switched based on head to head in the title game. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, Ohio State was a missed field goal away from forcing overtime, possibly within the last few minutes. It was, it's not like either of the SEC or Big 12 championship games, which were pretty much one-sided affairs. But what they're saying, and I think this is what you're saying too, no one's saying it out loud, but that's what they're thinking. Oh, well, that's just the Big 12. BYU's record was inflated because they're in the Big 12, but we've got to keep Texas Tech up here because they just are beating everybody so badly. I wonder if Texas Tech was only winning by 3 or 4 and still 12-1, if they would be in the top 4. I kind of doubt it, because, well, it's the Big 12. It's not that hard to win there. It's just not as good of competition. But yeah, that was one of the many ways that they contradict themselves during that whole announcement, was talking about how little they're going to penalize conference championships, appearances when you lose, and then BYU's gets dropped out completely.
Yeah, they
an 11-2 team that their 2 losses are because you think about it. If this was Texas Tech, this is something that would just drive you nuts. This was Texas Tech, and if the roles were reversed, it'd be the same thing. I think if Texas Tech was an 11-2 team playing great defense all year, but dang, they lost to BYU twice, and one of them was in the championship game. They'd drop them out. They'd drop us in a heartbeat.
That we were told you were not going to be punished for playing in a game that you earned the right to go play in. You earned the right to play in an extra game. And what does BYU get for it? They get dropped.
Meanwhile, Miami and Notre Dame don't play at all that week. And of course, Notre Dame gets dropped anyway because the committee finally remembered that they played each other earlier in the year.
Yeah, so BYU drops back a spot to then put Notre Dame and Miami next to each other. And then well, when you do that, then it makes sense to flip Miami. So Miami moved up 2 spots without playing a game.
Yep. I just can't believe it. Alabama actually, they stayed put. They were 9 before and they were 9 after.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I think it has to be addressed somehow. I don't have solutions, so I'm not the idea generator. I'm the guy that pokes holes in everything. That's just my personality. That's where my strengths lie. But I look at this outcome and the college football playoff bracket, and I say, why are we holding space for a group of 6 teams?
I think that's going to change.
I think you need to make sure that they would be considered. Like, you can't just say, well, it's going to be group of 4 and not have anything in the group of 6, unless you just want to create their own tier of a national championship. Have a separate league almost. Yeah, you can play up a division, if you will, play group of 4 schools, but then have a group of 6 champion. I mean, maybe that helps. I don't know if it does. I think some of it has to be okay, for a group of 6 to be considered, before you even consider maybe expanding the playoff, you probably need to be top 15 or whatever. I don't know what that number is going to be, because right now you kicked out. I hate to call them deserving. You kicked out Notre Dame. You made space for a number 22 Lane and a number 24 James Madison, and who was hurt by this was Notre Dame and BYU. BYU lost to one team all year. Notre Dame lost in the first 2 weeks of the season and then won 10 straight. Granted, they won against a bunch of nobodies. They still won 10 games. And I hate that they get to cherry pick their schedule, but it is what it is. I think one way of going about fixing it would be to not absolutely guarantee a group of 6 inclusion. You have to have it. I think you need to have more stringent requirements on those teams to be up higher in the rankings, because let's be honest, Tulane as the 11 seed, they are a 2.5 touchdown underdog. James Madison, a 3 touchdown underdog. They're not even playing the same sport. It's not even the same. They're ranked. How can it be that different? Trust me, it's that different. And it was that way when Texas Tech was going through the Matt Wells years and the late Kingsbury years. You weren't fielding. You had teams that sniffed the rankings, but you were not a national title contending team. Tulane and James Madison are not national title contending teams. Notre Dame and BYU, much, much closer to being that caliber of team. So I don't disagree with you, Michael, that there will probably be another round of adjustments to what this ranking system looks like or how the inclusion works. I know that it was already in the bylaws or whatever that Notre Dame was going to be guaranteed a spot if they finished in the top 12 anyways. And that's going to be for 2026. Kind of funny it was baked in already, but they would have for sure had that, something like that being cooked up. I think though, well, yeah, I don't want to talk about the bracket just yet. We'll just know next week we can get back together. We'll talk about the college football bracket. College football playoff games will start next weekend. Bowl games actually start this weekend. So you have a Army-Navy game and a bowl game this weekend, which is I just kind of funny that those two things overlap. Bowl season, and I want to start with the opt-outs. Notre Dame is opting out of a bowl game, and I think this is like, as much as I kind of defended and said they deserved a spot in the playoff, or more so, I disagree with holding space out for a group of 6 team at the expense of a Notre Dame or BYU. They decided if they couldn't play in the playoff, then they weren't going to play anymore this year. They're not playing a bowl game at 10-2. That and everything the athletic director has come out and said since then. Charmin soft with all the A's, W's, F's, T's. Like, I'm sorry that you didn't make this year's version of the playoff, but to then say, well, I'm not going to go play is just ridiculous. They are the only team, bowl eligible team, that is not going through a coaching change as opting out of a bowl game.
Well, and I think that's kind of where we're headed with this. I've noticed it and I've felt it as much as I have enjoyed the 12-team playoff, and I really hope they don't expand it. I expect them to tweak it a little bit. Maybe they even drop back and force the top group of 6 team to face the number 13 Power 5 team or Power 4 team in a bowl game. That's not a playoff game, but it's kind of like all right, well, let's see what James Madison would do against Texas or something. I don't know. It would be a play-in game, but you're not going into the book anyway. So something like that. I think they will definitely be tweaking it, but I've felt this way probably since the playoff started, the 14 playoff, and just the amount of bowl games have just completely saturated the market and the fandom, and it's all about what the sponsor of the bowl game is and yada yada. These are all nothing new, no concepts that no one else has thought of before, but I think we've hit the bowl bubble. I think this is it. We're seeing it. We're seeing that the most of college football is recognizing what most everybody already knew, but just didn't want to act upon it. They were just going through it. That the bowl games have gotten more and more meaningless. It's a way for you to have a 5 losses, but say you had an 8 win season. It is a good. I think there's good aspects of it. I absolutely do. It's good for fans, to especially fans across the country that may want to travel a little bit during the holidays, or they live close to the random site that has a bowl game that their team's going to, and it's great for the team and the player. I mean, there's a lot of upside. I'm not saying that there's not, but I think that people are finally realizing that, hey, this is truly just an exhibition. It doesn't mean as much as it used to. no one's going to care in 10 years that we were 6-7 instead of 6-6. 6-7. Okay, my daughter would have loved that one. But anyway, it just I think we've hit it. We're at the bowl bubble, and people are going to start opting out, and I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means for them. I don't know if that means we're not going to have 40 bowl games anymore. I'd probably be fine with that. I mean, even Tech's last 2 bowl games have been just kind of ho hum. The Liberty Bowl was like half demolished, and Cal just didn't even get off the plane. So even for us,
Heisman Trophy finalist Fernando Mendoza didn't have a good game.
No, and so even for fans, it was just, and you've got players sitting out, which is fine. That's fine if they do that, but it just turns into a complete exhibition of bowl games. No one looks at it anymore. I mean, I think of the last 5 or 10 years,
well,
no one really cares that much if you won the Gasparilla Bowl.
Nobody cares about like if your team won the bowl, but they still draw unbelievable TV numbers. And maybe it's because it's like just a wrap up and like we just have to take it all in before it's over type thing. But they do really well on TV. The in-person attendance numbers are usually pretty bad.
Yeah, they're pretty terrible.
Especially when half the stadium is missing.
Yeah.
Memphis, like what were you doing? Hosting a bowl game with a half demolished stadium.
Yeah.
Or I guess a quarter.
Get out of here with that crap. Let's just get the TV money and run. No, that's when you know they do not give a shit. They do not care. They want the money. They want people to watch on TV. They don't care if people come or not. And hey, come to our stadium that's filled with porta potties and rebar.
Speaking of money,
enjoy yourselves.
Let's talk about the financial side of bowl games. You mentioned individual players sitting out, and that was a relatively new thing the past couple of years. I think we have I came around and said, you know what, that I don't have a problem with that. Those are chasing a professional. This is an exhibition game. That the expanded playoffs, I think you're seeing teams deny or decline bowl invitations. Some of them are using the financial aspect as like, we talk about like the bowl payouts and like, so some of these bowl games pay a lot of money. I was actually surprised at how much money the Alamo Bowl pays out. But
Valero, right?
Valero Alamo Bowl. Yeah, it's
they've got some money.
So the numbers I have here in the notes, Michael, that is a per team number. Now, granted, that money does not go to the team, for at least for the Big 12. That number goes to the Big 12 and then is divided out among the members. We saw Iowa State and Kansas State, 2 bowl eligible teams, decline a bowl invitation, and as a 6-6 or better team, the Big 12 fined them each $500,000. It has since come out that some teams will actually take a loss in playing in a bowl game, even considering that they are getting a bowl payout. For the Big 12, like I said, that money, while hefty, like you look at the Alamo Bowl, technically pays out more than the Orange Bowl. We'll pay Texas Tech. The TCU bowl earning from the Valero Alamo Bowl is $4,126,370. Why it's that specific, I have no idea. Because they pay out more than $8 million to the participants. Again, that goes to the Big 12 and then chopped up 18 different ways. 16, but then you also saw a handful of 5 and 7 teams that said, hey, thanks for considering us. We're not going to play in a bowl game, including 3 more Big 12 schools: UCF, Baylor, Kansas, Florida State, Auburn, Rutgers, and Temple. Big 12 has 5 teams declining bowl invitation. Now, the 5 and 7 teams won't face the same $500,000 fine that Kansas State and Iowa State will face. I have thoughts on a bowl eligible team declining an invite. Yes, they get fined from the conference. I also think they should forfeit the bowl payout share of their media rights payout in the spring.
Ooh.
Now, granted, I would also love it if like the team got to keep their own bowl payout and we didn't split that. I know that favors Texas Tech this year more than any, because for the, a handful of years, Texas Tech wasn't going to bowl game, but they were still getting that extra money brought in. And like last year, they got a little bit of extra money because Arizona State was in a college football playoff game. I think it's equitable in the sense that like you earned that bowl game, then that program should earn that money. And maybe that just means the rich get richer. And the Big 12 is just continuing to say like, hey, we do this together as a conference. You already do that for the media rights. So like West Virginia that had however many people watching per game, 200,000, get the same media payout as Texas Tech and Colorado and Arizona State, whoever had, like Kansas State that had the most. I think bowl games, should be a little bit more like you earned that, you should take it home. But I did want to share this though, Michael. I looked at the Big 12 bowl game, their payouts this year, the Pop-Tarts Bowl, paying over $3 million. The Texas Bowl, $3.2 million. We talked about the Alamo Bowl, 4.1. The Las Vegas Bowl, which is where Utah's playing, 1.45. That's ridiculously low. Liberty, 2.3. The Holiday Bowl is 3.2. The Sun Bowl, 2.275. The Orange Bowl is 4. I didn't see any clarification because this is a second round. The first round games also get 4 million. So I don't know if Texas Tech gets 8 million or if they just get the 4. I don't know why they would get 8 million besides them being like saying, hey, like you would have, like you get the benefit of not, you get the benefit of had that first round without having to play the game. But the payout actually goes up for the next round. So I also think that maybe you don't get it. However, the teams are responsible for their own travel, but with the college football playoff, you get a stipend. You get a travel stipend. Texas Tech gets $4 million media rights payout, but also $3 million in travel expenses. So technically, you get, well, Texas Tech gets $3 million plus $4 million to the Big 12 for media rights payout. That $3 million is per game in the playoffs. So if you win round, your first game and get to the next round, you get that $3 million again for the next round. Does it cost $3 million to go on the road? I don't know. So
I bet they'll figure out a way for it not.
Yeah, that just a little bit of extra money in your pocket on top of the payouts. Like I said, the next round, which I guess would be the quarterfinals, that's a $6 million payout instead of 4. So considering that those are per game payouts and Texas Tech only having the one round, because that's all I want to include here, the Big 12 would be pocketing somewhere in the neighborhood of $24 million in just in just bowl media rights payouts. If you divide that out equally across the 16 teams, that's just under $1.5 million added to their pot. If you were to penalize Kansas State and Iowa State, that payout jumps up to almost $1.7 million. Again, I wouldn't hate it, especially now I get that like it very much favors Texas Tech and TCU this year. But if the teams took home their own bowl game payouts, but I just want to share that, I guess. I think that there should be more of a penalty for a Iowa State and Kansas State. Now, I get it. I get their situations. They're playing. Iowa State is not only down a coaching staff, they're dealing with unbelievable amount of injuries. I get that. Kansas State going through a coaching transition. I can understand that. But you know who has played through a coaching change before? Texas Tech.
Everybody else.
Yeah, I selfishly, Texas Tech has played through. I think we've a past decade. Texas Tech has played in 2 bowl games without a head coach. That Texas Bowl against Minnesota, Chris Thompson was your interim head coach that game.
Yeah, and
How
then
many
the
times was on
Alamo
his,
Bowl.
and then the Alamo Bowl. Yeah, you had Ruffin McNeil. So I guess in my fandom of watching Texas Tech, you've done it 3 times. You had the Alamo Bowl, you had the Minnesota Bowl, and then it felt like there was one. Yeah, it was going into Wells, not Wells. Sorry, going into from Wells to
Oh, yeah, there was a whole stretch of Sonny Cumbie era. The Sonny
yeah,
Cumbie era. Is that what you're?
yes.
Yep.
All right, we won't go through. Like I said, we're not going to go through the playoff bracket. We're not going to go through every bowl game. We're going to go through the first few that'll happen before we record again, because bowl games start this weekend. So we've got the Army Navy game on Saturday. We've also got the Celebration Bowl, South Carolina State, Prairie View A&M, 12 p.m. ABC Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and then you get the LA Bowl, Boise State versus Washington, 8 p.m. ABC in SoFi.
I might watch some of that.
That's a decent goal. That's a decent game, and it's this weekend.
Yeah, and you'd get to go to see SoFi, which was just on my TV last night for the Eagles. The Eagles were there, and that was a really good game with a good finish.
Yeah,
That's a cool stadium. I'd like to check out someday.
for sure. And then it'll be when we go, as we're going live next week, December 16th, Tuesday night, Salute to Veterans Bowl, Troy versus Jacksonville State, 9 p.m. on ESPN in the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama.
9 p.m. is Alabama? They're Central.
They're Central.
Dang,
That's a
it's
late kickoff.
I know, but they do that. They do that during bowl season because the Texas Bowl versus Ole Miss, I think, was 9:15 or 9:30 in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that vividly because we drove in that day, and then I fell asleep before we then drove to the game. Got me a little power nap at about 7:00.
So let's get to some comments before we move on. Okay, this is going back to the BYU game and the penalties conversation. Nathan Collins said, I think the ref threw his hat. This is on the Aiken touchdown. I think the ref threw his hat and ruled Aiken down at the 1 in case it was ruled that he went out of bounds on his own. Confusing and bad refereeing all around, though. Yeah, I think he was forced out. I think there were some BYU fans that were complaining about that. It was like, you can come back in and reestablish and be the first player to touch the ball, but if you're forced out. Watching Bama get skull dragged by Georgia was totally interesting. Yeah, I agree. We were in a restaurant eating dinner. The game was on. I did not watch a second of that game. And then he also points out, Nathan Collins, we all rushed for 3 more yards than Bama did. Michael, you had more rushing yards than Bama did this weekend.
Man, it feels like it. The hammies are singing to me.
Steve, it doesn't feel real. No, I will never. It still doesn't feel real. I feel like the Power Fours are eventually going Super League, and this whole structure is going to be upended again. I can certainly see how we're heading that way. And then Nathan, as a college football sicko, I hate how the bowls are dying.
Yeah, I get that too. The one good thing about the bowls in the last few years is the dang Pop-Tarts Bowl. They've captured lightning in a bottle there. I mean, I will watch the Pop-Tarts Bowl every year now because it's insane. It's fun. I think the players enjoy it. But man, as a fan, I sure enjoy it. That looks like a fun bowl to go to.
That one and then like the Citrus Bowl have like the best matchups. Because I think this year is what, Texas, Michigan,
Yeah, let's see.
outside of the
Yeah,
outside of
Pop
the playoff
Tarts.
bracket.
Pop Tarts is BYU, Georgia Tech. That's pretty solid right there. Those are some good, really tough quarterbacks going against each other. That kind of sells itself already.
Could have been Notre Dame in Georgia Tech's spot there.
Yep, it probably would have been. Where was it? You have all of them here. I just can't find it fast enough. Here you go. Yeah, Texas, Michigan. Yep.
Pinstripe Bowl, everybody's preseason national title game, Clemson versus Penn State, in the Pinstripe Bowl. Yep.
Just like we all saw it.
The New Mexico Bowl, UNT San Diego State. That one could be interesting. Granted, you're going to be without Eric Morris, but San Diego State's been sneaky this year. The Gator Bowl, Missouri, Virginia, could be pretty good. Texas Bowl, LSU, Houston. Interestingly enough, like on an ESPN site, Houston was the only ranked team to not have their ranking next to them. Surely it was just a typo, right, Michael?
Yeah,
Surely
they
not,
would never
like,
slight. They would never slight the Big 12 like that.
Never. The Music City Bowl, Tennessee, Illinois. Alamo Bowl, USC, TCU. That one could be. Well, I say that. I don't think TCU is going to hold very well against USC there. The ReliaQuest Bowl, Iowa, Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Sun Bowl, Arizona State versus the 7-5 ACC champion Duke. I guess they're 8-5 now. And there's a Citrus Bowl, Texas, Michigan. So the 31st, New Year's Eve, is going to have a lot of good games. Get you set up for Texas Tech the next day. Nebraska, Utah, and then the Las Vegas Bowl, and then the first quarterfinal, Ohio State versus the winner of A&M Miami in the Cotton Bowl.
I wish we got in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, I think you showed whoever decides where the teams go. Like Texas Tech absolutely would have sent a lot of people into the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah,
you may have reset the attendance record for that bowl game. But anything else on football, Michael, before we want to put that off? I mean, we're not doing a game preview for Texas Tech. We're not looking ahead to James Madison or Oregon. Not breaking down the first round of bowls or anything.
Got to let the games play out. No, I am. Despite how calm we sound, I'm just ecstatic. I'm just so glad to be here. So yeah, no, not a lot to say about football.
Okay. Basketball, man. There was a little bit of a break. You had your first game in a while. You took on an undefeated LSU squad on Sunday afternoon. There in Fort Worth. They were there in the stadium for the Texas Tech BYU football game. Although when they showed them on the Jumbotron, they said Texas Tech basketball team. The group of people they were looking at was not the basketball team. I'm not sure who you thought you found, but that was not them. You fell back a spot in Haslametrics. You did jump up quite a few spots on your defensive rating. Ken Palm has you at 19 overall. You moved up 9 spots from the week prior because of your defense. It went from 37 to 24. Haslametrics has you at 24 overall. Big 12, Arizona holding strong there at 1. Iowa State jumped way up. They took down Purdue. They moved up from 10 to 4. Houston went from 8 to 7. BYU went from 9 to 10. They had a big win tonight in Madison Square Garden. I don't know if you saw that, Michael. They had a 22-point comeback and then took a lead on a 3 with just over a second to go.
No, last I saw, they were down 20 to Clemson, right?
I don't remember. I just got the notifications like, oh wow, they completed the comeback. Texas Tech up to 16 from 19, and then Kansas moved up a couple spots from 21 to 19. Oklahoma State, TCU, and Arizona State are all also receiving votes. So 7-2 on the season. Most recently, the 82-58 victory over LSU. I saw some of it. I heard more that it was a Christian Anderson revival, return to greatness. Holy smokes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic game.
He played every game or every minute but two. He was 9 of 16 from the field, 5 of 9 from 3. Made 4 free throws, had 27 points. He had 10 assists. A double-double the hard way. 2 steals, 5 rebounds. Yes, he was just on fire pretty much from the drop of the hat. Toppin didn't get the ball that much, but took advantage of the double team and found some open guys who were actually hitting shots. He only shot 10 times, but he made 5 of them, had 11 points. I don't think I mean, luckily they didn't really need him to do that much this game, which is kind of a first for the year. It's nice to see Toppin have a quiet 11 points, but still 15 rebounds, still had a double-double on the day. But for him, that's a quiet day. Lawan Watts came off the bench with a double-double of his own, 15 points, 10 rebounds, made all his free throws. Just a really good defensive effort as well. Yeah, this was I same as you. I was driving back and Hacks and Level just kind of caught themselves and said something along the lines of, "Well, now this is the team we've been expecting to see." So hopefully that kind of lit a fire in them a little bit for this year. But yeah, just completely demolished LSU. As we mentioned last week, they hadn't played anybody till they won in overtime in Boston at Boston College on Wednesday, and then went to Texas and had a rough go of it.
Yeah. Next game up will be Saturday, 11 a.m. on ESPN2 versus the number 17 Arkansas. They're in the American Airlines Center in Dallas. Top AP has Arkansas 17, has them at 25, Ken Palm 27. So, I mean, they're right there, right next to you. Very narrowest of margins projected here by Haslametrics. Less than just at 0.21 points. Texas Tech 75.49 to Arkansas 75.28. So expect a close game. Yeah. And then you come home, you get Northern Colorado, and then the following weekend, the 20th, will actually be in Lubbock, but the team will be in New York, taking on Duke in Madison Square Garden.
And I'm sure some of you have already made this connection, but it's going to be a busy night for Red Raiders because obviously you'll want to watch your Red Raiders take on Duke at MSG, but I think an hour before that, Oregon and James Madison kick off. And so you're gonna have to have 2 screens up because you got to see who Tech's going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Do some scouting. Do some scouting for Joey, for Shield, for Mac. Send him your report. Anyway, yeah, that's going to be a fun night of sports for Red Raiders on the 20th. I have a Lady Raiders update.
Okay.
Still undefeated. It is December 9th as we record this. The Lady Raiders are 10-0 after demolishing Wichita State last week. We got to go to this game, and I didn't realize until we got there that Wichita State was 1-7 coming into the game. I see Wichita State. I immediately think, hey, they're going to be pretty decent at basketball. Good program over there. It's a down year. It's a down year for them. So the Lady Raiders did take advantage. They won 83-43. They won by 40. They were up 40-21 at half. But Wichita State, credit to them, they made it interesting. Right after halftime, came out with a 7-0 run to start the third quarter. And was only down by 12. It was 40-28. But from that point on, for those of you who can do quick math, the Lady Raiders went on to outscore them 43-15, starting about halfway through the third quarter to the end of the game. Big story here, two things. Jada Malone came off the bench, had a super productive night. Sarah Sonogo's I don't know if she's injured a little bit or what, but offensively has not been a presence this season, but Malone was for sure. 19 points, 5 of 7 shooting. She had 10 rebounds, had herself a nice little double-double, 3 assists, 2 blocks, just kind of filling out all the stat sheets. And she was a perfect 9 for 9 on free throws. So really incredible on that. And even more incredible, 24 minutes of play. So 19 points, 10 rebounds, including a perfect 9 for 9 from the charity stripe in 24 minutes. The other big story for me, and I know it was a blowout, but bear with me, 49 bench points. Texas Tech has not seen that. The Lady Raiders have not been able to produce that in a blowout in any sort of type of scenario recently. It's not a common thing. So of course 19 of those were Malone's. Sonoda Collins came in with 13. Love had 8. Blacklock got some playing time. She played a lot of the third and fourth quarters, had 5. And Miriam Sonogo, Sarah's sister, had 4. And interestingly enough, they were all free throws. And she was perfect from the free throw line. I wish she would help her sister out a little bit in that area. But a really big win for the Lady Raiders. They head to Washington State on Friday. That'll be a kind of a late one for us over here in God's time zone, 8 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Sunday, December 14th, they will play Abilene Christian, but it will be at a neutral site in Odessa. That's at 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus. And then the game where all the school kids go, Wednesday, December 17th, hosting Jacksonville, 11:30 a.m. on ESPN Plus. If you go to that game, take your headphones or cotton or whatever else you could possibly put in your ears during that game.
Earplugs, yeah, something.
Yep. And the only reason I'm skipping, so far ahead is just to point out that Big 12 play starts right after that, Sunday, December 21st. They go to Baylor at 3 p.m. ESPN Plus. So, yeah, Lady Raiders, they always kick off Big 12 play a week or two before the men do. And that's what we're going to see this year. So get ready. We'll have Big 12 action before we know it.
I mean, we're 10 games in, Michael. We gotta start paying attention somewhat to basketball. I say we, like I know you are. I need to start diverting some attention, I guess. We got 3 weeks until Texas Tech plays, which we can chop up the merits of a bye week versus a bye round versus the tune-up game had you been on a 5-6 line instead of the 4. But we'll talk about that next week. As we look ahead, start to not preview the matchup, but to look at the state of the playoffs and the bowl season as it gets started. But I think that's probably a good spot to wrap it up. Let's do what do we learn, and then call this one done and dusted, man. What'd you say?
I'm good with that. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a Queen Bees update. I learned that sports are hard, and even 9 and 10-year-old girls can take it really hard, or actually 8 and 9. But so the Queen Bees had 3 games on December 6th at 9 a.m., 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. in a foggy, cold, 48-degree North Texas day. Mm-hmm. And they came away with 2 ties and a loss. Just a tough day at the park. And both ties were really close. I think the Bees scored first in both games, so it hurt a little bit more. The equalizer came later from the other team, so it was 1-1 draws in the first two games. Our goalkeeper, a ball went through her legs, and it's one of those things that if she was in that same position like 199 times out of 200, there's no way she's going to miss it. She's pretty dang awesome. But it was wet, and and she's also a player who takes it really hard, and so man, you just really felt for her. But you just the whole time you're like, hey, it happens. That stuff happens. The third game, the Bees lost 1-0, and the one goal was on the same goalkeeper, but she took this one a lot better because she realized I think it was an impossible shot. The player for the other team couldn't have kicked it more perfectly. I don't know if she could ever do it again in her life, but it was one of those kicks that was as high without hitting the crossbar as you possibly could get. I think it actually went up through the top of the net after it went through, and our goalie, there was just no way she was going to be able to stop that. I mean, it would have been tough for me. So anyway, tough day for the girls. A lot of them were taking it really hard. My daughter wasn't, and almost to the extreme side of it. Where she was just more excited that she gets to go swimming at the hotel afterwards because they don't have to play the next day. So, we had to kind of, hey, I know you're having a good time and everything, but some of the other girls are going to be sad, and that's okay if they're sad. And oh yeah, okay, yeah. Anyway, she had a good attitude about it. So sports are hard. That was what I learned. Just super highs that I got to experience kind of from a distance through like three forms of media. Watched the first quarter at a restaurant before we went back to the field, and I listened on XM on the way, and then I streamed it on Varsity while we were there, and then listened to XM on the way. But anyway, got to experience the highest of highs and some lows for the Bees, but it's good for them. It's good for everybody. It's a good group of parents, so it's fun to get together and hang out and take over Babe's Chicken House on a Friday night, which we did. And if
Babe's
y'all were
Chicken's
there,
so good.
it was really good. And if anyone listening happened to be at the one in Frisco on Friday night, sorry. There were 45 of us, and we were probably a mite loud, but that's how it goes. And it was really good. I was pretty impressed with how much they churned out and how quality it was for the amount of food and the amount of people that they were able to feed, kind of on a whim too, because our group had called and said, well, we've got X amount of people coming, and they said, well, we don't take reservations, but just show up. And so you show up at Friday night at 6:30. We waited maybe 15-20 minutes, and they had tables ready for us, and yeah, knocked it out. I saw a couple, to kind of echo what you said earlier. Coming from Lubbock, I took the north route through Seymour and Benjamin and all that area.
Which is the way we go when we stay with my brother-in-law in Denton.
Yes, totally. Yeah, because we went through Denton to get to Frisco. So I hadn't been that way in a long time, and it was just a joy to see so much tech stuff, flags flying. There was a guy selling barbecue, I think in Alney somewhere, with a smoker with a giant double T on it. There was just double T's all over that drive. It was great, and independent of this game, it's just like I think this is just how that drive looks. So I loved seeing that, and I saw a couple of BYU fans at Babes on Friday. Saw some Tech fans there. Saw Tech fans at our hotel where we were, which Frisco's nowhere near Arlington really. So the presence was felt. There were a lot of double T's everywhere. I was sneaking in a guns up every chance I got, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't really have anything to add to what I learned. I'm just going to just repeat that, like, Texas Tech won the Big 12 title, man. I was consider myself lucky enough to go to that game, to be in the building when it happened, to experiencing the environment. Yes, it from what I heard and what I've seen, it portrayed very well in the broadcast. You could hear it, but it was just unbelievable just to be there. And then to cap that game off, singing school song as the victors in the game in the conference championship. It's going to stick with me for probably the rest of my life. So that's going to be it for us this week on the 23 Personnel Podcast. We'll be back on Tuesday to start getting the ground set for the playoffs. We'll know more about what the matchup between James Madison and Oregon is going to look like. We'll have the first couple of bowl games to look at, look ahead. But yeah, that'll do it for us this week on the 23 Personnel Podcast. Signing off as Big 12 champions, Michael and Spencer. Catch you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast. Help us out by subscribing, rating the show, and leaving a review. Follow us on Twitter at 23 Personnel, Spencer at PuntSuck, and Michael at Michael_LVK. Be sure to catch the next episode. And until then, guns up and let the tortillas fly.